All right, good evening, folks. Let me get things shared here, and then we will get underway here with the live stream. Thank you for tuning in, everybody. It has obviously been an active day here across the region. We'll take a look at that. We'll recap some stuff here in just a moment. So while we're just kind of starting up here, while I'm getting stuff posted, you can see that satellite imagery that I've got right over there. That is showing the remnants of the atmospheric river and how it's kind of been shunted to the north, I guess you could say, by our ridge that's moving in, that's going to give us finally a little bit of dry weather here. So that's what's going on with that satellite imagery there. You can see that current of moisture is like, it's still there, but it's still going, but now it's just directed up toward Haida Gwaii, which obviously they're no stranger to any amount of rain. So yeah, so that's what we're looking at right now in terms of the moisture and all that. Everything is going on there, but yeah, so go ahead and throw some questions in the chat there, you guys. Let me make sure I have it set to I see all messages. All right, yeah, thank you everybody for watching. Welcome into the stream. Let's get going here. So starting here with satellite imagery, this is what we're looking at first. You can see that we have the atmospheric river well offshore now, and it's not really moving into our area. It's just kind of there. And that's kind of what we're seeing here. So in terms of the radar, you can see the remnants of it. Got some rain pushing across Idaho and Montana, and actually we did have some pretty big impacts in terms of the rain there. Across parts of Montana, along the Clark Fork River, I believe in the town of Libby, Montana, there was like huge washouts and stuff like that. So just some really crazy stuff going on up there. You can see light to moderate rain still going up in some of the Cascade foothills, but diminishing as we go into tonight. You can see a lot of this shower activity here in the Chehalis Gap also diminishing, so that rain is coming to an end slowly but surely across western Washington. And now what we can do, we're going to look at the European model as it runs here, as it runs this evening. So yeah, we'll take a look at that here in just a moment. I see some of you guys saying stuff in the chat. Has Snoqualmie Falls calmed down yet? Spyman says, well, let's take a look at that. We'll start right here with the river flooding situation. Obviously, we've all become very familiar with this website right now. So let's zoom out here. So this is the current situation as we find it at 9:30 p.m. here on, excuse me, there we go, 9:30 p.m. on this very active Thursday night. So Snoqualmie Falls, to answer that question, yes, it has calmed down. And it is, I got some video of Snoqualmie Falls, which I'll take a look at here in just a second. You can see it had that initial crest last night going into Wednesday night. That is going to be, I believe, the 4th highest crest on record. Then it dropped down this evening, last night, and then into this morning, it crested again up at 60,000 cubic feet per second, which will end up, I believe, being the 7th highest crest on record. And you can see through the rest of the day today, it has dropped dramatically, now back into minor flood stage. But you can see we may tick back up into flood stage here as we go into Tuesday and Wednesday of next week, with another atmospheric river potentially moving into the area. And that's what we'll be looking at as we look at the European model running here over the next hour or so. But there's a lot of flooding impacts that are going on across the area, and I want to make sure we take a look at those. So I'll start with Snoqualmie Falls. Let me pull up my video of Snoqualmie Falls that I took earlier today. Let me pull that in here right here for you guys. So take a look at this. This is the quality's not going to be great, but this was Snoqualmie Falls earlier today. You can see it was just, I mean, it was absolutely raging. I've never seen it this big before, and it was just really cool to watch. Look at how much water was coming over there at Snoqualmie Falls. So really cool, really interesting stuff going on there up at the falls. It has since calmed down, and it is back down into a somewhat more manageable level now. Let me see, chat here. Legit Gamer 21 says, I saw Bonner County, Idaho got hit pretty hard too. Let's pull that up here. Let me take a look. Let me see if I can get some. It looks like, I'm just looking here. Looks like there's some washouts and stuff like that here. Yeah, you guys can see this this photo right here. That's Bonner County, Idaho. Look at that. That's a significant washout there. With that atmospheric river. So what happened is, going back to this radar, you can see how the atmospheric river moved into western Washington, obviously brought us a ton of rain, but look over here as it kind of hit some more mountains there, the Rockies, it squeezed out even more moisture. And something that we can look at here is our rain totals. Now that the rain has stopped for the most part, we can take a look at kind of at what rain totals we have across the region. But before we do that, I'll pull this up in just a second. I see David Parker's question there. How's downtown Mount Vernon? Is the flood wall holding? Well, I can't say for sure if the flood wall is holding, but what I can say is that as of right now, we are now setting a new, looks like we are just to the point of setting a new record at Mount Vernon. It's very close there to setting a new all-time record. It's going to just barely get above that as we go into tonight, into tomorrow. So I hope that flood wall is holding, but I'm not positive on that. You can see another potential flooding event there for Mount Vernon as we go into the second half of next week. So we'll look at that forecast in just a moment. Legit Gamer says, so the atmospheric river regenerated with the rain shadows over the Rockies. I wouldn't say exactly that, but basically you had the current of moisture streaming all the way across the Pacific Northwest, and it just kind of, you had the same thing here with the rain shadowing as it hit the Olympics, then you had the rain shadowing over the Puget Sound, and then it hit the Cascades. You're just having that happen in a bigger way here across eastern Washington. So it's hitting the Cascades, you get this rain shadowing, and then it's still there as it hits the Rockies. So if we look at the observations, we're going to look here at rain. We'll do rain since Monday. So let me just put that in here. And we're going to do basically rains from Monday to now. And this is kind of going to tell you, as we scroll around the area, this is going to explain to you guys why this flooding was so bad. So let's start here in the lowlands. You can see some pretty good rain shadowing there. I mean, look, you only got like about an inch up in Everett, 2 inches in Seattle, 3 to 6 inches from Seattle southward. Look at the south slopes of the Olympics, 12 to 18 inches. Some of those higher end forecasts did verify there. Look at the Northern Olympic Peninsula, 5.8 inches there in La Push, 6.8 inches in Forks. Typical rain shadowing there for South Whidbey, for Port Townsend and all that. Northern areas here, the Nooksack River flooded much more than was initially expected with this atmospheric river. You see 4 inches of rain around Bellingham, up to 15 inches there in the headwaters of the Nooksack and Skagit rivers. You can see that one at Baker Lake, 10.4 inches. If we zoom out a little bit more, you can see as we move south through the Cascades, we have had some big flooding impacts along the US 2 corridor, including in Leavenworth. And I'm going to take a look at some of those photos from Leavenworth here in just a minute. But look at this, 14.8 inches, 11.9 inches, 12.7, even 13.7. Just incredible amounts of rain there near the Skykomish River. And then look over toward Leavenworth. You have 7.5 inches near Lake Wenatchee, 9 inches at the head of Lake Wenatchee, 5 inches as you go down toward Leavenworth. And I'm just going to pull up a few photos here real quick to show you guys, because there was some crazy stuff that happened in Leavenworth with the flooding here. This is the post I wanted to find right here. So let me see if I can click that here, and I'll bring this in. So this is Leavenworth, Washington, you guys. Dave Summers posted this in a Leavenworth group. Look at how high the Wenatchee River is here. Look at some of these photos. I mean, that is just crazy. You got a river hitting a bridge right here. I'm not exactly sure what's going on with that. Look at all the rapids and all that. This is just crazy. Look at how much flooding there is in the valley here along these roads. I mean, you got roads flooded, you got homes flooded. I mean, look at that all the way down through the valley toward Leavenworth there. Just some really crazy flooding going on there. So this is, and why this is happening, which is something we can look at here right on the flooding map. So if we go over to the Wenatchee River at Peshastin, that's the closest gauge to Leavenworth, what you're seeing there is that it's almost at a record. You're at 17.1 feet right now. The Wenatchee River at Peshastin is still forecast to rise a little bit as we go into tomorrow morning. This flooding is not going to get better just yet for Leavenworth. In fact, it's going to get a little bit worse. And then we start to drop down out of flood stage as we go into the weekend. But this is way higher than this was even forecast to be last night. And that's because we just got so much rain over some of these slopes of the Cascades last night. Of course, some of the rivers that are flooding the worst have been hit by just incredible amounts of precipitation. You can see 7.5 inches in North Bend, 7 to 8 inches there across parts of Maple Valley down toward Enumclaw, Black Diamond, and then into the Cascades. You can see up to 10 inches just to the west of Mount Rainier National Park. But look at this, between I-90 and Mount Rainier National Park, you have this small area of up to 18 inches of rain, and that completely explains to you why the Cedar River has reached its all-time highest record, why the Snoqualmie River has been so high, because you just had this incredible area of rain here in the Central Cascades. I mean, look at this, 17.6 inches. That's basically the same amount that you got out by Lake Quinault, which is known for being the wettest place in Washington State. So just absolutely incredible amounts of precipitation. You have one station here that has 19.9 inches there up the river from Enumclaw. So just some incredible amounts. You can see 4.5 in Federal Way, 6 in Auburn, about 5 to 6 there in Puyallup. Just incredible rain totals. As we go further south, you can see about 4 to 6 inches there from Olympia down toward Portland. Portland itself getting about 3 inches out of this atmospheric river. You can see up to 15 inches there near Mount St. Helens. So the Cascades just got absolutely hammered with this storm. You can see even 15 inches on the dot at Paradise on Mount Rainier. And then if we look over here in parts of Idaho and Montana, you can see not the most like impressive totals by Pacific Northwest standards, but you can see that some of these totals up in the mountains can definitely cause flooding. I mean, look at some of these in Montana, like 11 inches and stuff like that. That's pretty crazy for Montana. That's not something that usually happens. So yeah, it's pretty significant to see how some of this atmospheric river has spread all the way across some other parts of the Pacific Northwest as well. Hood looked like close to a foot, yeah. Something else we want to show you guys, the Cedar River in Renton. It reached its all-time record crest today. Let me pull that up here for you guys. So this is a video that was sent to me by a good friend. This is the Cedar River there in downtown Renton. Look at how high this is. I mean, if we go back to start this video, you can see that it's literally hitting this bridge. There's a wake, kind of this wave that is being pushed out on the bridge, and it's going to remain at these levels all the way into tomorrow. And this is really concerning for some people over there in Renton. So take a look at this. Here is the National Weather Service forecast there, and here's the Cedar River at Renton. And just look at how long it stays elevated. It's at the latest one, 17.79 feet right now. And that is well above the record of 17.1, and it's just kind of stayed pretty steady there, kind of fluctuating back and forth over the last few hours there. You can see it's you'd think that it's starting to go back down, and then it just goes back up. And you can see as we go into 10 p.m. tonight, and then into 4 a.m. to 10 a.m. tomorrow, it stays not just in major flood stage, but above the all-time record, setting a new all-time record potentially sometime overnight into tomorrow morning. And that is just pretty crazy to see. Even further downstream, the Cedar River there at Landsberg is going to get almost to its all-time record. Its all-time record was 10.4. It got to 10.17, and then you can see it slowly starts to drop down as we go into tonight and tomorrow. A little bit further to the south here in the South Sound, the Green River in Auburn. This has been causing some even evacuation problems in Auburn. You can see the Green River has been above flood stage since Tuesday morning and rose up to moderate flood stage there Tuesday night, and then has started to drop down back into minor flood stage. It rose up again today, peaking just below moderate flood stage, is dropping now, going to drop again as we go into tomorrow, then rapidly rise again with a peak up into moderate flood stage again as we go into Saturday. Remains very high into Sunday and Monday, peaks again going into Monday morning into Tuesday, and then slowly starts to drop down as we go into Thursday and Friday of next week. However, we're still above flood stage. So just some really crazy stuff going on there on the Green River. To a lesser extent, the White River is also going to remain very high, but not as high, not as crazy as the Green River there. You can see the White River likely remaining in minor flood stage all the way through next week. All right, guys, now let's take a look. We'll take a look at some more flooding impacts potentially later. There's obviously a lot of stuff going on. I'm not going to be able to cover all of it, but wanted to just point some of it out to you guys. So please, if you have questions about the flooding and stuff like that, throw them in the chat there. It will be great to answer as many of those questions as I could. But what I want to do is I want to take a look at the European model, and we're going to look at the latest run that is coming in right now. This should give us a really good picture of what is going on over the next few days. So you can see the atmospheric river is pushing out of the area here as we look at this forecast for precipitable water, the amount of water vapor in the atmosphere there. You can see it moves north as we go into Friday, and we dry out as we go into Friday and Saturday. So that is pretty good to see. Then you can see as we start to move into Saturday night, that atmospheric river is still active. It's going to push back through. It's weak and it's moving quickly, but it does move through as we go into Saturday night and Sunday morning. However, take a look at what comes up next. Another atmospheric river is going to move right into the Pacific Northwest, and you can see the European model forecast has it just slamming right into western Washington yet again with more high values of precipitable water, bringing more heavy rain, high snow levels, and another potential round of flooding, which is not really what we want to see, but it is unfortunately what's going to happen. However, the silver lining with this is that it does not last as long. You can see it once it pushes out of the area, there's no second pulse of moisture or anything. It just starts to push south over California. Could potentially be problematic for the Bay Area and stuff like that. Then you can see we may have some more systems here off into the extended. Will they be atmospheric rivers? Will they not? It's a good question. You can see the pattern is there. I would take this with a grain of salt, what you're seeing right now. But you can see right there that from Northern California up toward Washington, that door is open, relatively speaking, there for atmospheric rivers. One thing we can also look at is how much precipitation this is going to bring. Let's run this out through tomorrow morning. You can see maybe picking up a little bit more rain with some showers moving through as we go through Friday morning. However, as we go into Friday night, you can see into Saturday morning there, you got a little bit more rain for some of the mountains, but not much. Then as we go into Sunday, that system, our former atmospheric river, moves back through the area, and then that precipitation starts to pile up with the next system. You can see as we go through Tuesday night into Wednesday, that's when that finally stops. As you go into Wednesday night, you maybe get a little bit of break Tuesday, but going into Wednesday night, or no, we'll stop it at Tuesday actually. You can see another couple inches there in the mountains. This is not going to bring nearly as much flooding as the last one. The thing it's going to do is it's going to exacerbate the landslide risk, and it's going to make it the rivers are going to rise a bit. It's going to make the rivers rise. It's not going to make them rise too much, but it is going to make some of them go somewhat easily back into flood stage, or in the case of the white and green rivers, remain in flood stage. Something else we can look at here, I haven't looked at this, so I'm looking at it for the first time with you guys, is the wind potential on Monday. It's not something we want to see, but it's something that could happen in terms of getting a decent amount of wind through here on Monday with soils that are just off the charts saturated. So as you can see, as we go into Monday, you have a low offshore. That pressure gradient gets a little bit tighter as that rain moves through, and there is a decent pressure gradient there across western Washington. And you can see that kind of tightens up a little bit as we go through the evening, and then we kind of calm that down. Then you can see as we go into Tuesday, it may look like an atmospheric river, but it is a little bit cooler. You can see there is more snow in the mountains there, and that is really helping to kind of dampen that flooding. And then you can see as we go into Tuesday night into Wednesday, we actually look to remain snowy in the mountains all the way through Wednesday morning, and that is good to see because that could show that we are on the cooler side of some of these systems. I don't really know what it's starting to show here. It's starting to show us getting maybe into a little bit cooler air with some of those atmospheric river systems to the south in California. So there's definitely some interesting stuff coming up here, but let's take a look at the wind gust potential, because this is something that we really have to watch given how saturated our soils are. So you can see as we go into Saturday into Sunday, maybe Whidbey Island getting a little bit gusty up toward 40 miles per hour there on Sunday. However, as we go into Monday, another wind event comes in here. And this would be kind of concerning, folks. This is not really what we want to see. You can see strong winds showing up there over the North Sound. They're 56 miles an hour showing up in Everett on the European model. 50 to 60 mile per hour gusts showing up basically from Everett northward toward Bellingham and the San Juans and Whidbey Island on this forecast. But Everett southward too, these are really strong winds. I mean, you have 45 to 50 mile per hour gusts from Seattle down through Tacoma and Olympia and then down toward Chehalis a little bit. And this is not really good to see when you already have the ground so incredibly saturated. I mean, I got 4.5 inches of rain in a week at my house, in addition to getting 6 inches in November and 5 inches in October. So there's a lot of water that has fallen here in the past, not just week, but a couple months. And then you can see even on the coast gusting up toward 50 miles per hour, maybe up to 60 miles per hour. So this could be a region-wide thing from the coast all the way inland, and then even into some of these ridge tops in the mountains, that you get just more tree damage potential because of the saturation of the ground. Let me catch up on the chat here real quick. Have any of the log jams been removed yet that are pushing on some of the bridge supports? I was up at EB Slough up in the Snohomish area earlier today, and they were working on it as hard as they could, but they have not been removed yet up there. I would assume that maybe in some places some smaller log jams have been able to be freed, but I'm not really sure. That's not really something that I know very much about, but I'll watch to see if I see any updates. Legit Gamer says, yeah, they were saying it's going to be worse because of the already oversaturated ground. Yeah, absolutely, and we can look at the landslide. Let's pull up this one right here. The landslide graphic here for the Seattle area from the United States Geological Survey. We'll let that load here for a minute while we go back to the wind forecast we were looking at. Let's see. It's going to get that to load there. There we go. So you can see, yeah, to answer your question there, April, Camano and Whidbey about the same. Whidbey will be a little bit stronger as usual, but Camano still getting gusts in this forecast, 40 to 50 miles per hour. And this is, again, guys, this is not what we really want to see with all the flooding and the rain we just had. Let me answer Leanne's question there. How might this extra warm and extra wet event impact our glaciers? Is that a meteorology or geology question? No, that's a meteorology question. It's more of a climate question, I guess. The glaciers, of course, are in a somewhat long-term decline. However, this event doesn't really play that big of a part as we may think it does. This plays a bigger part in basically decimating our snowpack, and meaning we have to kind of restart from scratch for a lot of places, especially some of the mountain pass ski resorts. But it doesn't really do much to the glaciers. I don't think it's really more of an issue for snowpack, which maybe could impact the glaciers a little bit, but I don't think it's going to be a huge problem for the glaciers, or at least not something that's noticeable. Spyman says, next week I'll be very concerned about landslides. Yeah, me too. It definitely is going to be a concern. It's already a concern. We have, let's see, we already have had some impactful landslides, two of which have been actually on I-90. One was yesterday afternoon, I believe, and that was between Highway 18 and North Bend. And then we had another one up past North Bend a little bit, and you just get this combination of all this rain not being able to drain effectively, and then the soils just get so saturated that they are overcome by gravity and down they go. So pretty interesting stuff going on there with the landslide potential across the region. Let's take a look at some of the flooding so you guys can get the very latest information. Here is the Snoqualmie River at Carnation. You can see it's been above 60 feet, which is a pretty big flood, since like 10 a.m. this morning, and it's still above 60 feet, just barely. But that's 12 hours for the Snoqualmie River at Carnation being at or above 60 feet. That is pretty crazy. Spyman says, or Legit Gamer says, sorry, is there enough snowpack yet to worry about avalanches? No, there's not yet. I mean, you look at places like Snoqualmie and Stevens Pass, after this atmospheric river, they're almost bare, which is really disappointing to see, but then again, that's kind of how it goes. David Parker says, thanks for your hard work and dedication to our communities. Of course, remember to help hit the channel by hitting the like button. Yeah, absolutely. Be sure to hit the like button, you guys, to like, share, and subscribe to the channel here. It'd be great to help the channel grow even more. It's been a pretty good couple weeks here for the channel, and it looks like we're going to remain active, so hopefully we get some more good weather to talk about together here on the channel. Taking a look at the Snohomish River up in Monroe. I was here earlier today. And there's a lot of flooding going on. It was supposed to get to its all-time record. It didn't. It got about 0.8 feet short, but still an extremely high crest, a lot of flooding. I talked to a few folks out there who lived there and said that they had not really seen anything like that before. So that's pretty crazy when you hear that from the locals. I was also in the town of Snohomish there, and it was crazy to see how high that river was. Obviously over the record, so I saw the new all-time record high height right there, but you can see it stays over the record all the way until tomorrow morning, and then it dips below the record but doesn't dip below major flood stage until, get this, until midnight there on Saturday morning. So just a crazy run going on here for the Snohomish River. There's a lot of closures up in that area. There's some pretty big flooding that is right up to the roads and stuff like that. Just really crazy to see. Even some levees being almost over top, not completely, but almost. Yeah, and what Spyman said there in the chat, Timberline Ski Resort on Mount Hood in Oregon is completely bare of snow at 6,000 feet elevation. Yeah, that pretty much sums it up. I don't really think there's much more that can be said. Let's take a look at some other river observations here. The Puyallup River at Puyallup caused some more problems today in parts of the South Sound there. You can see it has crested at 28.67 feet. That is its highest crest in, I believe, at least 15 years, potentially more like 30 years. And then you can see it drops down out of flood stage as we go into Friday morning. So a pretty crazy ride there for the Puyallup River with 3 crests, 2 of which were above flood stage, but it is on its way down. We can move a little bit further south here. The Cowlitz River at Randall, it has been in major flood stage for a very long time, and it is still in major flood stage, but you can see it's almost back down. It was in major flood stage there in Randall from yesterday morning all the way through right now, and then it had another crest in major flood stage on Tuesday as well. So it's just been pretty crazy up there in Randall. And you can see it drops all the way back down below action stage as we go into Sunday morning, then back up into moderate flood stage by the middle of next week with that next atmospheric river moving into the area. Looking at the Skookumchuck River there in Bucota, you can see that this is likely to flood right now, staying in moderate flood stage, and then dropping out as we go into the weekend, and then maybe getting up to bank full again next week. The Chehalis River near Grand Mound, there's a lot that drains into this river, and you can see it is on a long trajectory for a crest in moderate flood stage. It has been in moderate flood stage at the Chehalis River at Grand Mound there since Tuesday evening. It's going to remain there basically until Friday evening, so almost an entire work week there of moderate flooding there on the Chehalis River near Grand Mound. Another one we can take a look at is going off here into eastern Washington. We looked at the Yakima River, or the Wenatchee River in Peshastin there because we talked about it getting into major flood stage. The Yakima River at Horlick, which is basically Cle Elum, you can see there, it's in moderate flood stage. It's crested kind of 3 times. It crested up to moderate flood stage as we went into, that would be Tuesday morning, then dropped back down, then crested again as we went into Wednesday morning, and then kind of went back down and crested even again as we went into Thursday. So pretty long ride there for folks on the Yakima River, but it's interesting to see how high this got as we go a little bit further south there. The Yakima River near Yakima, actually. Let's take a look at that. There it is. You see that is in moderate flood stage there as well. Spyman says, how's the Lewis River doing in southwest Washington? This area actually didn't really get impacted that much. Here's the Lewis River at Woodland, and you can see it got up to bank full, and it's remained kind of elevated, but that's it, and it's just kind of staying there. So it's not that bad actually for parts of southwest Washington, which is good to see because it's been pretty bad for western Washington here. This has been a pretty rough ordeal for a lot of people across western Washington here. So looks like that forecast changing a little bit there for the Puyallup River. Are they releasing new forecasts right now actually? No, it's just it's dipped below flood stage there. You can see again Cedar River at Renton. Going to crest overnight and stay above its all-time record until tomorrow afternoon. Looks like they might have pushed that back. Just, oh no, that is what it was. Stay above the all-time record until tomorrow afternoon. That is just crazy. That is not at all what I thought this was going to end up doing. I thought this was going to be a pretty quick crest and then back down. But I think what happened here for the Cedar River is that we had a ton of rain in the Central Cascades last night, and I think we're kind of seeing the effects of that the Cedar River Basin got a huge amount of precipitation. Old Fashioned at Heart says, how's the Stillaguamish River doing? I'm in Stanwood. That has crested and is receding and is actually back to a normal level right now. You can see this is the gauge for the Stillaguamish River at Arlington. That's the closest I can get to Stanwood there. And you see we crested rapidly up into major flood stage as we went into early this morning about 5 a.m. Then it has dropped off dramatically through the rest of the day today. You'll be all the way back down way below flood stage as we go into Sunday. Then we rise back up a little bit as we go with that atmospheric river into the weekend, into early next week there across western Washington. However, the Stillaguamish River does not even get into action stage. So that's good for you guys down there in Stanwood. All right. The Skagit River near Concrete. It's in moderate flood stage right now. It crested about a foot short of the all-time record there earlier today, but well into major flood stage. Just got out of major flood stage. Going to drop down to about bank full there as we go into Sunday night, but then rise back up almost to major flood stage again with that atmospheric river moving in next week. Yeah, you're welcome, Old Fashioned Heart, no problem. And then, of course, the Skagit River in Mount Vernon. We looked at this already, but it never hurts to look at it again. That looks like it is now official that we have a new all-time record on the Skagit River, 34.43 feet. It was just there, now it went away, so maybe we don't. That's interesting. Well, no, there it is. So maybe it is there. It just keeps updating. That's odd. Yeah, looks like a new all-time record there on the Skagit River, 37.43 feet, breaking the record of 37.4 feet. So that's pretty significant to see, all-time record on the Skagit River in Mount Vernon. Now take a look at the Nooksack River there in Ferndale. Look at that. This was not expected to get even into flood stage in the initial forecast for this atmospheric river. And then take a look at it now. It's way up in moderate flood stage and even cresting a little bit higher there. I heard there were even some evacuations going on, not only in the Ferndale area, but also in Sumas and Abbotsford there in British Columbia. So that's pretty significant as well. And then as we can go down, we can look at, I saw Spyman there in the chat said, I heard the town of Skykomish got 18 inches of rain in 3 days. Is the town open or closed? We'll look at the Department of Transportation map right here. So let me take a look at that. Let me pull it up here. First of all, here is Skykomish right in here. You can see there's some pretty crazy amounts of rain near Skykomish there. This is the Skykomish station from the Weather Service. It got 14.8 inches of rain just this week. That is unbelievable. That is just an incredible amount of rain. Let's look at the travel times map here. This is going to kind of show us some of these road closures we have going on across Washington State, and we'll take a look at a lot of them because there is, as you can see, a plethora of road closures across the region. So here is what it is looking like. It looks like you can get to Skykomish. It looks like we are closing US 2 there at Skykomish. Again, you have Highway 906 closed over Snoqualmie Pass because of that washout near Hyack. You have Highway 203 and 202 closed from North Bend up through Snoqualmie and then up toward Carnation. I was in this area today as well and got to see some pretty crazy flooding there on Highway 203. And then continuing up Highway 203, it's also closed on the bridge, on the bridge just south of Monroe and just north of Duval. Highway 9 is closed between Maltby and Lake Stevens, and that is somewhere else I was today, and we could see the water flowing rapidly over Highway 9 and rising as we were standing there. We had to keep moving back a little bit over time because the river was rising so much. Moving to the north, we don't have too many closures. It looks like Highway 530 is closed there outside of Darrington. And then take a look at this. It looks like we do have a few impactful closures there in Mount Vernon. Highway 20 closed between Burlington and Cedro Woolley. Looks like Highway 9 is closed in Sedro-Woolley and then closed south of Sedro-Woolley because of the closure further down there on highway, or that actually, no, that's the only one on Highway 9 right in there. Then moving even further north, not too many closures in Whatcom County besides this pretty major stuff going on here in Sumas. We can actually look at the camera here right now and see what the live view of Sumas is. Looks like it is this camera. Let me see. Yeah, there we go. Sumas, Johnson Creek. Look at that. That is literally covered in water. I mean, that's flowing water. That's not just still floodwaters. That is flowing floodwater there through Sumas. Yet again, unfortunately, this has happened another time because there's already been a lot of problems with this kind of thing there in Sumas. So it's been a rough go, a rough few years for the folks up in Sumas. But you can see there are a few road closures there in Whatcom County, but not too much. And you can see some pretty bad traffic up there in Canada still because of some of these road closures and stuff that are going on. Moving a little bit further south here, we can look at some more of these road closures here real quick for you guys. Let's see. Looks like, yeah, so closed all the way to Leavenworth there for Stevens Pass. As we go further south, Highway 162 remains closed between Ording and South Prairie. And then you have Highway 410 closed from Enumclaw to Greenwater due to some pretty significant impacts up there. Spyman says hopefully the town of Oso does not get any landslides. Yeah, I hope that there is nothing at all that happens up in Oso. They really could not need anything else. So I really hope nothing happens up there. That's pretty much it for the road closures besides your typical ones. And then one that we do need to watch here is Highway 12 in Natchez. The road is gone. It washed out, though there is a detour available using local roads. So that is something you can do somewhat easily, it sounds like. Maybe I wouldn't recommend that in a big truck, but you could definitely take that detour there in Natchez there. So overall, not much else going on. So one thing we can also look at here, looking off into that extended forecast, is we can compare the European model and the American model and kind of see how they both play out with that potential atmospheric river as we go into Sunday through Tuesday. You can see American on the right, European on the left, and they both show it, just that first pulse of it there, and then you have the main body of the atmospheric river just move right into the Pacific Northwest. A little bit stronger on the European than the GFS, but that's also potentially a resolution issue. So, yeah, you can see that just slams into the Northwest all the way through, let's see, that would be Monday night into Tuesday morning, then potentially creating some big problems there across parts of California. Legit Gamer asks, how's the Yakima River near the Tri-Cities? Let's take a look at that. Here it is. Here's the Yakima River at Keona. That's as close as we can get to the Tri-Cities, just to the west of Richland there. And look at that. It's going to crest almost at minor flood stage. I mean, super close. Just 0.2 feet off of that minor flood stage mark there at the Yakima River at Keona. So that's pretty significant as well. Throw any more questions you guys have in the chat. That'll be lovely to answer as many of them as I can while I'm on here. Let's see, what else can we look at? Excessive rainfall outlook there. You can see that it was basically just the Cascades that ended up getting that excessive rainfall outlook, plus some parts of Idaho and Montana, which again, that did verify. It definitely did. Let's also take a look. We keep looking at some of these rain totals. So you can see some of the areas that just got absolutely hammered with rain. Look at this area for a minute between I-90 and Highway 410. These are incredible rainfall amounts, but let alone the fact that they happened in basically 4 days is just mind-boggling to me, honestly. I mean, imagine 19.9 inches of rain falling, period. I mean, you're holding 2 rulers to get that much. And that's how much rain fell in just a few days. And that makes sense why the rivers are just absolutely bonkers, especially some of the stuff that happened on the Snoqualmie River and especially the Cedar River, just smashing its all-time record. I mean, in a crazy way. just really interesting to see how that has all played out for a lot of the area there. Let's see. Taking a look at some more of these totals, you can see some of the local rain shadowing. I mean, even somewhere like Bremerton, look at the difference in rain between Shelton and Bremerton there. You see Bremerton getting 2.1 inches there at their airport. Shelton this week getting 6.5 inches of rain. That's a huge difference over something you can drive in like 30 minutes. So that's pretty interesting to see as well, that you can drive from Shelton to Bremerton, and you had a huge difference in precipitation. Look at between where I am here in Federal Way, getting 3 to 5 inches, and I think that 5 is a little bit too high. So you're looking at like 3 to 4.5 inches in Federal Way versus where I go to school at the University of Washington, where you're only getting about 1.5 to 2 inches. So big differences across the region because of the rain shadowing and stuff like that. Some of the lowest amounts that are occurring in southern Snohomish County there in Edmonds and Linwood, getting only about almost 2/3 of an inch. And an ironic thing, too, that even over in the town of Snohomish, where there's a lot of flooding, they only got about an inch of rain, an inch to an inch and a half of rain, and yet they are getting a river breaking its all-time record for like 12 hours straight, even a little bit more. Old Fashioned at Heart asks, how's Samish? Aunt and uncle had to evacuate. Interesting. The Samish River was forecast to get to like this crazy high stage, but it looks like it's all the way back down into action stage now and forecast to remain normal. You can see instead of getting super high up into major flood stage, it did rise really quickly, and it rose about like almost 5 feet in just like overnight. But you can see it did not crest in major flood stage, and in fact only crested in minor flood stage, and now is dropping very quickly there on the Samish River. Any other rivers you guys want to talk about, put them in the chat there and let me know. I will show you guys some footage I got today. Let's put that here. So that there's Snoqualmie Falls. We looked at that already. There's Cedar River. This was a photo from my drone. This was at Highway 202, just east-southeast of Fall City. Look at how swift this floodwater was. There's a car up here that's submerged. You'll be able to see that in the video that I will be posting soon to my channel here. But you can see just super swift floodwater there. The Snoqualmie River was so high that it's just flowing over the highway and down into the floodplain, into some people's homes. I was chatting with some of those folks that live here, and they were just all kind of shocked at how much water was flowing across the highway and into their property. So it was really crazy just to stumble upon that earlier today. So I'll be posting that video later here as we go through, as we go into the evening, maybe into tomorrow morning. I'll try to get that posted. And yeah, if you guys don't have any more questions here, I mean, we'll look through the forecast one more time. Then I'll probably wrap it up because I do have a lot of video I'd like to get edited and posted. I'll take a look at the overall pattern here real quick before we go. You can see the atmospheric river gets pushed out with this ridge right here. That ridge stays around through Friday and sort of through Saturday before it pushes off rapidly, allowing stuff to get back in here, allowing that next atmospheric river. You can see the signature of that showing up as we go into Monday. Look at that. That's a classic atmospheric river signature right there. You maybe even get that windstorm moving through with that. You can see the atmospheric river signature continues as we go into Tuesday. But look at how you get these different colors moving in. What you're looking at here are heights. So that's looking at where this specific height called the 500 millibar height is in the atmosphere, and the lower the 500 millibar height, that means the colder it is across western Washington, across anywhere really. So you have higher heights down here across California, Nevada, all that down in the southwest. It's warmer. You have these lower heights across parts of the northwest. It's cooler, relatively speaking. And you can see you get some troughing, that low pressure hanging out from Haida Gwaii down toward Vancouver Island as we go into Tuesday. And as you get these troughs kind of clipping us here, they're much cooler. Their origins are up in the Arctic and not out of the tropics. And while it's not bringing lowland snow or anything like that, it is bringing snow to the mountains. We really need to start building that snowpack. You can see we get one trough there Tuesday into Wednesday. Then look at this trough that slams into the area going into next Friday and into Saturday. And then we kind of remain in that pattern as we go all the way into next week. So there's definitely a lot going on there. There's potential for cooler weather, potential for mountain snow. We can actually take a look. We'll take a look at some of these ensembles for a few different things. First, we'll look at let's look at the mountain snow potential, and we'll just look at Snoqualmie. We'll look at Stevens Pass. So Stevens Pass here, you can see it's still pretty warm these next few days. That next atmospheric river moves in, and it's briefly warm there. Monday, you can see 45 degrees. But then look, as we go into Tuesday and Wednesday, we drop way down below freezing, and that allows it to stay as snow. And then look off into that extended forecast, looking to be on the cooler side. So taking a look at, we'll take a look at some of the ensembles. These may be the older ensemble members, or the ensemble runs, but I think that they'll still be pretty accurate. So you can see there as we go into next Monday, not much snow falling, but then look into Tuesday and Wednesday and Thursday, that we still have that precipitation around, but you kind of flip a switch and boom, you're getting a ton of snow up there. And that's exactly what we need to see after this. We really need, to get that snow back in here. Looking at 24-hour precipitation, you can see that atmospheric river, it hits right here, and you do get some pretty good rain amounts up there, but then it's going to switch to snow, which is really good to see. Meanwhile, taking a look down here in the lowlands, here is Seattle. You can see you're looking at another about 2 inches of rain by the time we get to next Wednesday. Maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit less. I'm looking at wind gusts. You can see a lot more ensemble members starting to pick up on those stronger gusts, 45 plus miles per hour. Even have a few ensemble members showing 50 plus miles per hour. So I would say if you guys are watching this stream right now and you're trying to figure out what is the biggest worry over the next few days, the second atmospheric river is definitely worrisome in terms of the fact that it could bring more flooding. If it trends a little bit further north, we could get even more significant rain with it. But also, one of the biggest things we have to watch for here is this wind. I mean, 45 to 50 miles per hour is strong anyway, but 45 to 55 miles per hour or something like that across the region after we've gotten anywhere from 1 to 5 inches of rain across the lowlands, even up towards 6 to 8 inches, and you throw 50 mile per hour wind gusts in there, and you got big tree problems because the soils are super saturated, and then you throw in some really big wind gusts just a few days after all that saturation occurred, and it's something you got to watch really closely. So obviously stay tuned for more on that, on the wind. We will wrap it up for tonight, you guys, so I can get some video edited, so I can get some rest. It's been a pretty crazy couple days here. So thank you all very much for watching. As usual, it's been good to do this, not as late as we did it last night, but it's been good to have some of you guys on here to do some questions and answers and stuff like that. Again, you can see all the purples, major flood stage. All the ones that have a purple circle in it right now are recording current major flood stage. So that's the Wenatchee River at Peshastin, the Skagit River in Mount Vernon, the Snoqualmie River at Carnation, Snohomish at Monroe and Snohomish itself, and then the Cedar River at Landsberg and Renton. And then you can see some of the reds are moderate, and then the oranges are minor flood stage. So yeah, it's been pretty interesting across the Northwest the last few days. Pretty devastating for some areas. A lot of that devastation could continue over the next couple of days before we really start to see everything recede and calm down ahead of that next system. So stay tuned for more. As always, I will have the next video up tomorrow morning, another briefing. I'll also have some footage up, hopefully before then, of the flooding over the last few hours here today. I was up in the Snoqualmie Valley watching a lot of that, so stay tuned for more. To see that, be sure to subscribe here to the Western Washington Weather YouTube channel. That video will be posted later. We'll have that the next briefing coming up tomorrow morning, so be sure to subscribe for that. And then follow me on the Western Washington Weather Facebook group and on my Twitter and Blue Sky accounts. And a note here, the Western Washington Weather Facebook group hit a astounding 3,000 members just a couple of days ago. That's pretty exciting for me to see. So yeah, thank you all very much for watching. Stay tuned for more as we go into tomorrow, and then as we go into the next system, all that stuff coming up, and stay tuned for the flooding video. So thank you all very much for watching. Stay safe out there and have a great night, everybody.